Hello and welcome to everyone who's joining us today for this incredible session as part of National Apprenticeship Week 2025. Today we're going to be talking about the really important subject of impact of apprenticeships, sharing some great stories and particularly some great stories around the social impact and the social return on investment around apprenticeship programs. My name is Alan Allison. I'm the VP of Apprenticeships here at QA. I'm really proud to have been part of QA's journey to support over 50,000 apprentices to enhance their careers, grow and enhance their future prospects as part of apprenticeships. Over 50% of those apprentices are people who've come through emerging talent programs from disadvantaged backgrounds or transformed their careers through reskilling with apprenticeships. I'm joined by a couple of our wonderful partners here today, and I'll just briefly introduce, we have with us Claire Hollis, who is Head of Managed UK Services at Capgemini, and one of our biggest apprenticeship employer partners. We're also joined by Mahima Sukhdev, who's the SVP of GIST Impact. GIST Impact, we're really excited to have been working with for about 6 months now as our social impact and return on investment partners. And I just wanted to ask you both to give us a brief introduction, starting with you, Claire, about your role, your involvement with apprenticeships, and anything else you feel will set the scene for the conversation today.
Thanks, Alan. So I'm Claire Hollis, as you said. I run the UK Managed Services part of our CIS, that is Cloud Infrastructure Services, part of the company. I'm a VP and I've been the advocate, I think, for the apprentices in managed services. So been in Capgemini 6 years. We've been running the apprentice programme now for just shy of 2.5 years.
Great stuff. And Mahima?
So I lead commercial development at GIST Impact. GIST Impact, for those of you who don't know us, we're an impact data and analytics specialist. We work with some of the world's largest companies like Microsoft, Ørsted, Coca-Cola, as well as some of the world's largest sort of program providers and social impact providers like QA, to help them measure their value contribution and quantify their value contribution to society and the environment. So yeah, delighted to be here today.
Perfect, thank you. And I will also say we'll be joined a little bit later on as well by Joanne Nielsen from Capgemini, who will come and support Claire and to tell some of the stories that we've seen across your Capgemini Academy. And if you don't mind, Claire, that's where probably I'm going to start the conversation. So we've been part of the Capgemini Academy and apprenticeship journey now for around 18 months now. Can you give us a bit of an overview of the vision behind the Academy, some of the talent challenges you tried to support and achieve, and also its alignment with your own goals and the company's goals to create talent and empower a new part of the workforce?
Yeah, sure. So the journey starts really, the vision was from my own story. So just to share snippets of that. I come from a disadvantaged family. I was also registered disabled at the age of 16, and that resulted in me losing 2-3 years of education. So I was much behind the curve against my peers. Hitting the age of 19, 20, without A-levels, without a university degree, I just wish there was companies that did something similar to what we do in Capgemini in seeing that we need to give people a foot in the door. Those schemes didn't exist. You couldn't get in those big companies. There was no advertising. There was no, it was either go to college and just learn a BTEC at that time or go to work. So I always felt when I was in a position in my career, if I could ever help people in similar circumstances to be able to just get that opportunity, that chance. So that was part of the vision, was very much for myself. Low income, disabled, working, my mum didn't work, my dad was disabled, benefits. It was, you don't think you're ever going to get out of that and you're going to be the next one that lives on benefits or etc. So the plan was to use that opportunity and see that in other people. If it was happening to me, it happened to other people. Joining Capgemini 6 years ago, the values of the company are amazing. Okay. The values are, a lot of us that work there wear the values of the company on our sleeve. And I just thought it was a great opportunity. The company was wanting to invest in our own people. So we have a big footprint in the Highlands in Inverness. Okay. And if you spend any time in the Highlands, you'll see it's been really struggling for some time in opportunity for young people. we have around 700 people in one location. They had no career paths. They were entry-level roles, so they couldn't see the future. Prior to COVID, you couldn't get a job unless you went to the location. So people would go to London and work for the big companies, go to Birmingham, the big cities, or Manchester. The Highlands people were restricted on how big their career could be because they were in the Inverness. So people didn't hire people in Scotland to then fly to London to work for the week. COVID hit and it changed the dynamics. A lot of offices closed, a lot of the need of people to be in front of people every day, Monday to Friday. So the idea came is we've got these 700 people with not many career aspirations in the Highland space. And it was to create a program that would give them a 4-year career path. So make them from an entry level to a successful professional in 4 years. Incredible. And that's where the idea came from, really. That was the vision. And we successfully did that. We didn't keep it to Scotland, though. We obviously wanted to branch into England, which, again, we've done a lot in England this year, but it's a little bit easier in England. But still, areas still have the same challenges. So we focus a lot on the Northwest, the Northeast, to give opportunity to mainly disadvantaged families. But it's all about inclusion. It's all about the diversity of those people.
It's incredible. And we'll talk a little bit more later about some of those stories, and can't wait to get to that. Last question I just wanted to ask on this sort of little intro to your academy. Huge amount of investment in there in skills from disadvantaged backgrounds, areas that don't have that opportunity. How did you have to balance the expectations of Capgemini as a high-performing organisation with what you were trying to achieve with bringing this diverse talent through? Was there a mismatch, or was it always supportive?
It's always supportive. It's always what a company wants to do. So you've got backing and we've got investment, but growth allows you to do these programs. So in the past few years, we've been really fortunate in Capgemini to win a lot of business, which opens opportunity, which allows us to grow and invest in our people. The support from our executives in the company are really strong around apprenticeships. Not just in apprenticeships alone, but early careers. I suppose the unique thing about our academy that we created, it wasn't aimed at young people. It was aimed at any diverse background, any age, any culture, anything. We never capped it of you've got to be this age or you've got to be this, size and colour. It wasn't something we did. But growth allowed us really to set the programme alight and invest because we could take more chance, more risk. We also realised that you can't always buy the skills that are coming in technology now. And sometimes it's about growing those people, growing those skills, but also it's about growing those behaviours. So, we recruit externally a lot, but you don't know what behaviour you're going to get through the door. You might get the professional, you might get the IT skills or the soft skills, the management skills, but you might get the wrong behaviours or the wrong fit for Capgemini. So the good thing about this programme is you're growing that behaviour and mindset and family to Capgemini. So.
Such a brilliant ethos. And thank you for starting the stories around that. So I'm going to change tact a little now and come to you, Mahima. And we're really proud to be partners with GIST Impact, and has done so much for us to be able to articulate some of the impact that our programs have in situations such as this Capgemini story, but generally the social impact of apprentices across all of our programs. Could you just tell us a little bit about GIST Impact, its background, and also try to explain a little bit about what social return on investment and social impact really means and the evidence that is brought by GIST Impact's tools?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, thank you so much, Claire, for sharing that story. It was very, very powerful and brings to life, actually, the reason why we do what we do. It's because unless you're being able to measure and report on those incredible stories at scale, that you don't necessarily get the investment you need from corporates sometimes or from governments and so on to be able to continue to impact that, create that impact and affect that change. So the reason GIST Impact sort of came to life was because we recognize that you can't manage what you don't measure. And so you need the right metrics to be able to make the right decisions, communicate your impact and so on. And the approach that we use is we use monetary values. So we use economic values to quantify impact that organizations are having, positive and negative.
Okay.
Probably wondering why monetary values. There are many different ways to measure impact. Economics is the way in which decision makers are used to making decisions. So when you have a dollar or pound numeraire, in that sense, it's easy to understand the size of the impact and make sense and sort of interpret that number.
Okay.
We're used to that. We live in a capitalist society, and the useful thing is there is a lot of uncaptured economic value being created and destroyed by organizations all the time. If you imagine for a second the emissions that a company releases or the resources that it consumes and the effect that has on eroding natural capital, that is a form of capital. It's a form of value that we have in our society.
Okay.
We just don't measure it. And in the same way, organizations like QA and like Capgemini are investing huge amounts of money and effort and time, blood, sweat, and tears into programs that upskill people, that promote diversity and equity and inclusion and so on. And those are creating human capital, if you want to call it that, or social capital. Again, not very much measured. So we bring to life, using a robust and academically sound and rigorous process, all of that hidden economic value being created and destroyed.
Okay.
And SROI is basically doing that for social programs. So it stands for social return on investment, which basically means the additional value that you're creating for society through your investment in a program.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
Okay. And I know you work, we'll come to a sort of learning and apprenticeship programs in a second, but I know you've done this in multiple fields and different areas. Do you want to talk about some of the places you've seen these metrics really have impact?
Yeah, I mean, all across the board. I think the useful thing about measuring impact in this way is that, again, it provides that language that's interpretable, and it's the language of business, it's the language of finance, and everyone can understand a dollar value. So to give you a couple of examples, we've worked with Microsoft, for example, across more than 20 programs now that either they're running themselves, whether that's, empowering young women to, build tech skills, to, reforestation programs, to sports initiatives, funding cricket initiatives, for example. And all of those different types of programs, you can measure and quantify the sort of hidden social value that you're creating. In the case of a sports program, for example, you can measure the health benefits that it's creating for the participants, or the well-being benefits that it's creating for spectators, for example. If you've got a restoration program, you can measure the impact in terms of carbon sequestration of that reforested land that you've just created, or the other ecosystem benefits also in sort of an economic context. So basically we put that dollar value to work then, and these companies like Microsoft are able to use it not just for internal decision making and sense making, but also to communicate a really powerful story that starts with robust science and economics and has all of the data backing it.
That's great. And as we progress in this conversation, we're going to hear some of those stories and apprenticeships through Claire and some of the things in Capgemini. I suppose last question for you, Mahima, is last year in 2024, QA are really proud to have been able to quantify that we delivered over £580 million of social return on investment. So thinking about apprenticeships, what does that actually mean to you in the metrics and some of the things that built up within that?
Yeah, definitely. I can happy to break that down. So first of all, congratulations, £580 million of social value is no mean feat. What makes that up though? So if you just take an apprentice as a starting point, that apprentice has joined a program. The first hidden economic value that you can identify is they've joined that program, but they're not paying for that program. And so in another world where they did have to pay for that program, they would have had to pay for the training or the course that they participated in. So that first economic value that you can pick out is your avoided skilling costs. It's usually a small number, but it is something. Then you get to maybe some of the more interesting components of that total economic value, which is the income uplift that apprentice actually gains through participating in that program and completing that program. So in the case of that, again, going back to that individual apprentice, that person has experienced the program. They have, taken on new skills. They've taken on new confidence. They've basically become a professional through the process of going through that apprenticeship. As a result, they're more likely to have a higher income and earning potential for the next 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Depends on the half-life of that skill, whether it's a very fast-moving, skill like cloud computing or data analytics, or whether it's actually just, you're an offshore wind engineer and you're probably going to have that skill for longer. But anyway, you're increasing the earning potential of that person exponentially through their participation in the apprenticeship program. And those are sort of two impact pathways, as we call them, ways in which you can, the investment you're making actually affects the participants in your apprenticeship. But that it doesn't stop there. You can also measure the staff retention benefits for the organization, because apprentices will have more loyalty, and again, this is all based on research and sort of economic validity. And then you can also measure benefits to government, people not having to be on benefits and so on. So there are all of these other sort of pathways that you can start to measure as well. And I think one other very important component of this is that the methodology is place-based and location-specific. So I just told you about all the theory, like what makes up your 580 million in contribution. But that 580 million is coming from some very interesting places. And it will probably be disproportionately derived from people or groups who are at a lower starting point, because you're creating more value depending on where that starting point is. So someone who's in Inverness and has participated and is from a lower IMD decile, as they call it, which is just a measure of deprivation for a neighborhood. That person will have a higher income uplift based on, again, all the economics and science behind it, than somebody who's doing that program in London. So that you start to see not just the total value you're creating, but also how you're creating value in places which need it most, and you can start to communicate that story powerfully.
Thank you for that. And yeah, like I said, we're really proud of that figure, but we're also really proud now through our partnership being able to support our learners, our employers, and the partners we have in the marketplace to really show that value to their customers, their stakeholders, and, as you say, to the government and various areas that we partner with. So no, thank you for that.
Of course.
For the next part of the conversation, I'm really excited to also welcome in Joanne Nielsen, who is the UK Emerging Talent Lead for CIS at Capgemini, alongside Claire. And really great to have you with us, Joanne, because now we're going to get on to talking about some of the storytelling and some of the real people impact that we've seen across Capgemini within the Academy over the past few months. But just to bring it back to social impact and the actual sort of stats that GIST has provided with us behind it, we mentioned earlier that QA's learners and projects has contributed over £580 million of social return on investment. Capgemini's project has been such an incredible and key part of that. Just to give you some indication of what it has achieved across 2024 and a little bit into so far in 2025, we've seen 116 learners across your programs within the Capgemini Academy. And it's actually across 12 different programs. It shows the diversity of skills enablement you're doing within the business. Just under £1 million invested through English and Scottish apprenticeship funding, which is an incredible amount, but that has generated over £11.5 million of social impact and return for the learners and the economies that they serve. And that results in, for basically every £1 of funding invested, almost 12 times return on investment in terms of value for that incredible careers and skills that these programs are generating for the people going through it. But that's the stats. What I'd really like to sort of hear about now is what that means for the people and some of the stories you have about the transformations, the journeys, and just some of the impact actually on the people who've been through this academy. So I don't know who wants to start. Joanne, welcome you in. Any particular learner that springs to your mind or stories across the program?
There's quite a few. I think for me, getting to know the individuals has been brilliant, and hearing their stories of how they got to Capgemini and then onto the apprenticeship scheme. But there's a couple that really stand out. Somebody that was had a job milking cows, got offered a role at Capgemini, joined, then heard about the apprentice programme, joined that. They're absolutely excelling in it. They've been promoted. working in a cyber role now, doing something that, you know, they'd never, ever dreamt of. And watching them believe in themselves. You know, they're so thankful for it, because they say, you know, if Capgemini didn't believe in me, I would never have believed in myself that I could do it. So it's so heartwarming to hear these stories. There's other people as well. Somebody that had been with Capgemini quite a while, but was stuck in the same job. We had, I think it was Claire who met the person and had a conversation, suggested the apprenticeship programme. And again, they're absolutely excelling in it. They're now on to the second programme. And this person is so thankful that, you know, she's had that opportunity now. And yeah, absolutely smashing it.
Yeah. So, Claire, anything that springs to mind from your perspective that you've seen across the business?
What's great to hear is people say the words like, it's life-changing. I never dreamt this. This couldn't be me. And they're strong, bold words for people. I thought I'd have to move. I thought I'd have to leave my family. I thought it'd never happen. We wouldn't have this opportunity. I think it lends itself to people such as, you know, my mum devoted her life to us as a housewife. That was her biggest role in her life, and probably still is. And there's people that have done that for their children. And then the children are grown, they've fled the nest, and everyone gets this empty nest syndrome. And it's like, what am I going to do? And it's those females and some males, but in the female category, that are saying, it's time for me now. I've given my children the best start I can give them. And seeing those type of people, for me, coming into the workplace from doing you know, I'm a mum, and it's the hardest job I've ever done and the most precious, but to see them come in and change their own lives for them. So it's the first time they've had to think of themselves. So it's success stories like that. And what it gives them is their children look up to them and think, God, wow, look at what mum's doing. You've got people changing careers. So we've got a lot of people that have been builders, plumbers, electricians, and they get to in their late 30s, 40s. They've got back problems. They've got knee problems. They don't want to work in the cold anymore. And how do they change career? It's more or less, you think it's impossible. You think it's absolutely impossible. And then they look and they reach out this opportunity, and they're the people that grab it the firmest. They grab it with two hands. So I love those type of stories that come from the academy, those people that actually need it at a different time in life. It's not all about the young. It's about when the right time is for that person and their life. So they're the stories that, you know, I'm most precious to me.
Yeah, no, but and just to give you an indication, and I know you know this, but typically within that QA company-wide return on investment, we normally see around 6 times return on an investment for every £1 invested, which is still incredible. But Capgemini's Academy is delivering almost double that. And that is some of the stories you've told there, including from cow milking to building, going on to cybersecurity technologists and other tech roles. It's just such a powerful testament to your commitment, but also apprenticeships. I'm also one of the other stats I noticed as well, that 99% of the people who've gone through this academy program have either advanced onto further training or have been given full-time roles and training within Capgemini. Is there anything more you can say about that commitment to the people and the training within the business? Because that's an incredible statistic as well.
They just get hungry for it. You don't get anything in life without work, hard work. We all, I don't believe anyone that says anything's been landed on a plate for them, because everyone has their own challenges. But these people take this opportunity and they continue to learn. They continue to improve themselves. They continue to invest their time, their commitment to our company. So a lot of our benefits from investing in apprentice schemes such as this is we get loyalty, we get commitment, we get talent, and talent attracts talent. So it attracts people to come to the business. We don't pay ridiculous recruitment fees. We don't have a retention problem anymore. We've seen our attrition rates drop in those areas that we're investing in the apprentice schemes. We've seen people believing in themselves that never thought. Those people that said, I'd have never done this, I'd have never. So you just see a different belief in people. So the value we get from a company point of view as well, is long-term employment of commitment, but also they understand our culture, our values, they understand our clients, so they understand the client's needs. So they're not only masters in technologies or Gen AI or cloud or infrastructure, they become masters in Capgemini and our client base, which the value, you can't buy that.
Yeah. So a slightly different question, and Joanne or Claire, I'm thinking about, and maybe it's to you, Joanne, being close to the management of this program. Anything you've learned or any advice you'd give or any challenges even that you wanted to share about managing this community of people and making sure they're incredible successes they have been within Capgemini?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier, I think it's getting to know the individuals and what they need, because every person, they're on their own journey. Yeah. And it's understanding what they need from a manager, what support they need, or if they're better just doing it on their own, and each person's different. But I think it makes you feel very proud watching them on this journey. When they start on day one at the induction and they're nervous, they don't know anybody, and then seeing after 3 months, 6 months, they're all part of that community. They know they've got all the other people that are on the same academy, to lean on, to talk to, as well as, the managers and things. And it's really great knowing that you've had a part of their success. Really great to see that.
That's amazing. So anything further on some of the stories or impact that you feel you haven't shared?
There's one particular individual, again, in Inverness in the Highlands, that is probably in our top 20 performing individuals of the organisation in managed services. He's flown. People are wanting to tap him up for roles. He's had external job requests. He's been trying to be poached. He's took automation and Gen AI to the next level. He's wanted by the global team. So the global team have said, can we have this person? And it's just because he's just so invested in himself now and believes in himself. But he's just one of those such smart people that gets overlooked. He'd have never shone. You'd have never seen him in a room of 100 people. Now he stands out as bold as anything. So he's pretty special to me.
And that's incredible. And that talks about the behaviours apprentices can develop and support, not just skills, and brilliant.
It's what they influence as well, though. So people see these people, these rising stars, they see them and they have aspirations. So they like the torching other people as well. So they see people, it spreads. It's massive. It's lovely to see. I want to be that person. I want to be like them, and they'd have never thought that. So that's something when you look from the outside and you look in and you can see these people bloom and blossom and just people wanting to be them. You wouldn't have seen them 2 years ago, which for me is remarkable.
Yeah, like the torch in other people. What a brilliant statement. So yeah, no, thank you. That's really insightful and some really personal stories there which really bring this to life.
No, you're welcome.
Okay, Mahima, welcome back to the conversation. And I'm going to move on a little bit now to just a chat around, without giving everything away in terms of Capgemini secrets, Claire, how can organisations replicate the success Capgemini has seen in aligning skills development with things like social impact and creating the careers of the future? Anything that you'd sort of say as a piece of advice?
I think the first thing I'd say is don't overlook what you've already got. So I think it's easy to look external. It's easy to look at what you think you're looking for externally. So it's worth the investment internally. Do we know our people well enough? Do we know what skills they have in their back pocket? Do we know what their aspirations are? Do we know what they're really doing at home? So we see many people, they've got test labs set up at home. They're writing computer programs. They're gaming. They're gaming in Northern Europe. They're gaming in the global sense. They're writing programs. They're creating and selling like IT packages for gaming programs. They're writing code. And actually, they're a service desk analyst in the UK. We don't know that about them. So I think, firstly, look internally, make sure you understand your own people. What have they got to offer? Because you've already invested in them. You've already given them a job. But what can they can give you so much more. So I think that would be the first thing. I think then when you understand your people better and you understand your organisation, the strategy, the vision, you know where your gaps are.
Okay.
So if you go in external, target those gaps, those specific gaps that you need. We know technology is changing in vast. You've got to keep up with it. So you need different thinkers. You know, we sit in cloud infrastructure services. You typically have a certain mindset. We need different. To stay in the field, we need different. So know your people.
If I can jump in here with a question, if you don't mind, Ellen. When I looked at Capgemini's social value creation data, it stood out to me that there was something clearly distinct about the way in which you designed this program to have maximal impact. So, and of course, the numbers can tell you, ooh, there's something different going on here. But the what is different going on here is a mystery to me. And I'm actually very curious to know, but did you go in, when you were setting up the academy, did you go in with a particular design in mind to maximize that impact? You mentioned, bringing, of course, bringing the best and everything about your people to the table. But are there other sort of almost design features that you planned in advance, or how did it happen?
I suppose the easiest way to describe it is, what are you wanting? What does the word apprentice mean? Most people, if you say an apprentice, they think a young person, a junior person, early careers person. They don't actually think it's that 40, 50-year-old wanting to change career path or a housewife now wanting a career. They don't think that way. And I hate labels. So for me, I didn't want to labelize this. So we didn't have any boundaries. You could come from any age, from any background. You could be from any walk of life. It didn't matter. It didn't really matter about your qualifications, your education, what professional qualifications you had. It didn't matter what your mum and dad did because they do follow steps of the parents. So a big thing for us was not to have any of those boundaries, because if you have those boundaries, how do you know what you're missing? How do you know what you're missing out of? And also, who am I to say that person's not eligible to be an apprentice? They might be the best apprentice we're ever going to have in Capgemini. So for me, it was, don't have the walls and the gates and the acceptance criteria at the front. Because even just, you look for a job today, if you don't tick every box, you don't apply for it. Well, females definitely don't. But if you tick all those boxes, you'll apply for it. So how many people actually could be better at the job, but don't tick all the boxes? And that was the idea of the apprentice, was not to make it anything other than, if you want a career in Capgemini, you want an opportunity, you're willing to learn, you're willing to study, you're willing to put the hard work in, then the opportunity is open to you.
Great. Claire, I'm going to come back to you in a second and probably ask the question about what you look for in a training partner alongside this. But before I get to that, I wanted to come to you again and just talk about, you obviously work with companies in different fields and different areas. What advice would you give to organisations, or what have you seen as best practice to absolutely maximise social impact and SROI?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm going to just describe a trend that I've started to see, which I think is part of, maximizing your SROI. It's exactly what you described, Claire, where organizations are looking inward first at their people, at their business model, understanding where am I having impact, positive or negative, and where could I be having more positive impact or reducing more negative impact. So I think gone are the days when, you had a tech company that was doing mostly just beach cleanups, or a, energy company who was supporting preschool education, and the social impact was happening here, and the business was running as usual here, and those two, twain would never meet. Now I'm seeing a big coming together, and I think it's a really positive sign where companies are expecting more of themselves, and actually the modern consumer, or even just, the modern person, expects the organizations that they buy from to be looking inward and actually at their own operations, at their own activities, and maximizing the positive and regenerative and inclusivity of their own operations. So I think that's a really positive trend, and something that a lot of companies are aspiring to and continuing to do. In terms of best practice and maximizing ROI, On a more tactical level, the thing that I've seen, the journey that I've seen companies go on is they'll start collecting data and they're very excited about it. And they're like, ooh, we've got data. And previously we haven't had data. And honestly, the moment when you first see a program manager see the data for their program for the first time, that keeps me going. It's just such a delightful moment because they're so thrilled that the impact that they believed that they were having, the numbers now prove it. Because otherwise they had their strong belief and they had their stories, and we've heard amazing stories just today about all of the impact that's been had. And then they see the numbers and they're like, ha, I told you so. And they feel so proud of it. But so that's sort of the entry point. But then what I see as best practice in terms of actually managing impact, you have to take a nuanced approach to the data, because data is wonderful and it's also quite dangerous. What you can't do is say, okay, that program has a high SROI, so we're going to do more of that. And that one has a low SROI, so we're going to do less of that. It's just the beginning of an interrogation. It's the beginning of analysis. You might track a program over time and try and understand what components of it are having a higher SROI, but also not then say, we'll do more of that. Say, why is it that that's having more of an SROI? Then you actually ask the question, do we want to maintain a sort of suite of activities that focus on a higher SROI, social return, or actually is it important for us to have a diversified portfolio where we maintain certain programs where maybe the social return is not that high, but actually it's important for us because they're tapping stakeholder groups that we otherwise wouldn't get to, and so on. So I think that's kind of a really key component of managing your data in the right way.
Yeah, I think absolutely crucial. And a couple of points in there about absolutely making sure what you are doing to create social impact is aligned to your ESI and social impact goals of the organization. Exactly. Otherwise, it doesn't resonate. But equally, that there could be some things in there that are incredible that you need to invest in and develop further.
Yeah, totally.
So, Claire, I'll give you the heads up on this question, and we're really proud to be partnering with you on the Capgemini project. But in terms of a training provider and some of the good, bad and indifferent, hopefully mostly good, that you've seen in this project, what has been most important in the relationship to support you to have this impact?
The ease of working with QA. So I were very fortunate years ago to work with QA. And I was fortunate to work with a really good person. And that person became a little bit blended in your organisation. Yep. They spent the time to understand the organisation, understand our needs, our business drivers, our culture. Yeah. So when we thought about the apprentice programme, I wanted to look for a learning provider, and we were given contacts in QA. We were very fortunate meeting yourself, meeting Seb, that engagement was there. Yeah. Your interest in Capgemini, your knowledge on Capgemini was a bit outstanding. You probably knew more than I did at the time. But I think the engagement, the ease to do business, the fact that you grasp where we're going and where we're heading. And we don't always have the answers. We know where we'd like to get to, but you come to us with that partnership of working with us to develop this great program. This isn't just Capgemini's program. You know, you should be as proud as we are in delivering it. And that's it. You became entwined with us in the journey and the vision. So yeah, that's how we got with QA.
Yeah, no, thank you. And but I think most crucial to us as a provider and to any provider should be what just resonated there is get to know the organization. Do not do a one-size-fits-all program that's going to crowbar people into it, particularly when you're trying to address such powerful things like social impact. Create these wonderful customized journeys that focus on the individual and the impact they want to achieve and give that flexibility. And yeah, no, I'm really proud to be part of that and yeah, continue to achieve such fantastic things in Capgemini.
One thing I should have said, Alan, is the investment you have in our learners. So it's not just us as a company. It's not the brand of the company. Of course, it means a big thing. Capgemini is an excellent company to work with. But the investment your individuals and your teams have with our learners is huge. And that is something we'll always be grateful for. It's not a given, you know, so it becomes personal and you can't always get that anywhere.
Yeah. So. No, thank you. So heading towards the end of the conversation and trying to summarize this up into key takeaways for the people listening now, or key takeaways that you've experienced and want to share. We can talk about the social impact we've created, the £580 million we've created last year through QA, the £11.5 million on Capgemini. But key takeaways from any angle you've heard of this conversation for the people listening, how can this be effective or add value to their organisations? I don't know, start with you, Claire. Anything that you think you'd like to summarise and leave our audience with?
Yeah, so I think it's what you get from an organisation, how proud it makes you to invest in these programmes. But it's about the results. It's about the numbers. I know, referring to you, sometimes the figure matters. The number does matter. That is key. We can't get away from that. We want to earn profit. So therefore it's a big thing. But if you invest in the people, I always say, if you look after your people, the business takes care of itself. So for me, that investment is key. Find an excellent provider. That's also key. They keep you honest. They keep you on track. But that for me will be success. Invest in your own people.
Okay. And Mahima, conscious we're the first apprenticeship partner with GIST Impact, and really proud to be that. So any key takeaways you've heard from the stories today or your experience of working in this field? Yeah,
I mean, if I can just throw in my QA story as well. Yeah. Honestly, when we started working with QA, it was actually through a Microsoft program that QA was involved in. And it's very rare for our product managers who care passionately about social impact calculations and so on to sort of ping me and be like, hey, there's this organization we're doing this assessment on, and have you seen the data here? Because they're deeply passionate about creating social impact, and the data comes to life, and they're even geekier than I am about numbers. They saw the stats for QA, and they decided it was worth showing me, and that I just think is a testament to the incredible work that you continuously do, not just in the obvious places, but that I think they were looking at the IMD decile numbers actually with the first time when they brought that data to me, saying like, look at the disproportionate impact this organization is having across some of the most deprived neighborhoods across the country in the UK. Look at this. And so I think the message takeaway really for the audience is there is so much power in the data if you start using it in the right way. And the good news is that it is thanks to the world of big data and analytics that we live in, and Gen AI and all those amazing things we're training these apprentices on. All of that is at the tip of your fingers today. You can do that sort of calculation very easily and effectively. In fact, I think when we first started working with QA, that was you had a lot of data for us to start working with, and the assessment got done in a jiffy. And it's not just apprentices, mind you. We can do a similar quick assessment like that for any type of social or environmental impact that you are having as an organization. So really my message is, if you're not already starting to think about measuring and quantifying your impact, now's a really good time to start.
So I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you for joining us today and listening to these incredible stories as part of National Apprenticeship Week. I'm sure I can thank and say to Mahima and to Claire that it really has been inspirational. And I hope everyone watching and listening has taken something away to really understand and impact their organisations and create career advocacy and social impact through apprenticeships. I'd just like to end by saying there are some incredible stories around Capgemini and further work that we've done with them as a case study on our website. So please go and take a look. And I hope it brings value. And again, I'll just finish by saying thank you again for joining us and hope everyone is having an incredible National Apprenticeship Week and celebrating apprenticeships and the impact they have on organisations. Thank you.